Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. A man briefly held for questioning in the Nancy Guthrie case has been released. It's one of several new documents in the case. We have the details on that and the latest. The FAA lifts a temporary airspace closure over El Paso, Texas, saying all flights will resume. The reason behind the temporary shutdown. A new jobs report is in, with U.S. hiring showing strength in January and unemployment unexpectedly falling. We have the latest numbers, plus a comment from President Trump. Attorney General Pam Bondi testifies before the House Judiciary Committee. Lawmakers questioning her about the Justice Department's handling of the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. President Trump meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Discussions on Iran expected as Trump delivers a new warning.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Wednesday, February 11th. I'm Stephanie Cox. The airspace around El Paso International Airport is open again after the Federal Aviation Administration previously announced a 10-day closure. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the FAA and the Department of War detected a Mexican cartel drone incursion. Duffy added that the threat had been neutralized. The FAA said there was no danger to commercial aviation and that all flights would resume. The shutdown, announced just hours earlier, cited special security reasons. At the same time, the FAA imposing a similar flight restriction around Santa Teresa, New Mexico, about 15 miles northwest of the El Paso airport. El Paso sits on the southern border and is a center for cross-border commerce with Mexico. Next, U.S. hiring showing signs of strength in January as payrolls rose by 130,000 and the unemployment rate unexpectedly fell to 4.3%. The data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics suggests the Labor Department remains steady at the start of 2026. Many sectors like healthcare and professional services adding jobs, giving hope that wage growth may continue. The January report delayed from February 6th due to a partial government shutdown, but the latest numbers signaling continued resilience in employment. And each January, the Bureau of Labor Statistics adjusts payroll figures against a more comprehensive survey called the Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages. Those adjustments showed that job growth from April 2024 to March 2025 was nearly 900,000 lower than first estimated. President Trump, meanwhile, welcoming the job growth in January, saying the jobs numbers are great, far greater than expected. In a Truth Social post this morning, the president writing, quote, "The United States of America should be paying much less on its bonds." He added, "We are again the strongest country in the world and should therefore be paying the lowest interest rate by far. This would be an interest cost savings of at least $1 trillion per year, balanced budget." White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett also weighing in on the latest jobs data. Take a listen.
And we just saw one of the best jobs reports you've ever seen, outperforming the estimates of 76 out of 78 economists polled by Bloomberg, giving us, let's go through it, the best labor force participation that we've had since 2001, the lowest share of federal government employees that are working since 1966. Everything is hitting on all cylinders, and the deficit is going down because of the tariffs.
President Trump hosting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House today. The two leaders expecting to discuss ongoing U.S.-Iran negotiations. The meeting comes after Netanyahu met with Trump negotiators yesterday. Netanyahu's office says Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner provided an update on the first round of talks held with Iran last week. And President Trump telling Axios he's thinking of sending another aircraft carrier group to the Middle East if those talks fail. Trump saying the U.S. currently has a massive fleet in the region. The president adding either we will make a deal or we will have to do something very tough like last time, an apparent reference to last year's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Lawmakers are questioning Attorney General Pam Bondi today as she testifies before the House Judiciary Committee. Bondi begins her testimony by saying her Justice Department is focusing on fighting violent crime, protecting the American people, and defending the rule of law.
While our work is never done, we have made tremendous progress to make America safe again. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years. That's nothing short of historic. If you compare 25 to 24, here's what you'll find. The murder rate is down 21%, robbery down 23%, carjacking down 43%, gun assault down 22%, ag assault, burglary, could go on and on. Crime is declining. This did not happen by accident. The numbers tell an important yet straightforward story. President Trump has given us the resources, the support, and the leadership to protect the American people. President Trump's policies have saved lives.
Bondi also addressing the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and his associates following the department's release of 3.5 million pages of files. House Judiciary Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin criticizing Bondi over the DOJ's handling of the probe, claiming she's ignoring Epstein's victims. Bondi defending her department's investigation into the disgraced financier.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Epstein survivors who are here today. I'm a career prosecutor, and despite what the ranking member said, I have spent my entire career fighting for victims, and I will continue to do so. I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through, especially as a result of that monster. If you have any information to share with law enforcement about anyone who has hurt you or abused you, the FBI is waiting to hear from you.
And the hearing getting heated at some points. Here's a clip of Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal asking AG Bondi to apologize to Jeffrey Epstein survivors. Take a listen.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the
my
answer.
time.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't
a
she ask
question.
Merrick Garland this twice?
I am reclaiming
when he
my
sat in my
time, and
chair?
when
Authorities say they're making progress in the search for Nancy Guthrie, mother of NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie. The FBI releasing a new video of the potential suspect, and the sheriff's office detaining a man for questioning. Here's the latest.
Police last night questioning an individual in connection with the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, mother of NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie. They say they detained the man at a traffic stop near the southern border with Mexico. He was not charged. Later that night, the Pima County Sheriff's Department conducted a search in Rio Rico, Arizona. The homeowner said someone gave a tip that Nancy Guthrie was in her house and that authorities are investigating her son-in-law, the man who was detained, but insisted he had nothing to do with the case.
They only said that they gave a tip that she was in my house, and I told them, you can go in and search my house. There's nobody there. I have nothing to hide. There's nobody in my house, and I don't know what's going on. I mean,
do you have any family members that might know?
No, they're investigating my son-in-law. He's not have nothing to do with that either.
Earlier in the day, the FBI released new images and videos from Guthrie's doorbell camera from the morning of her disappearance. The video shows a person wearing a mask at the 84-year-old's front door. The individual is armed and is carrying a backpack and appears to have tampered with the camera. FBI Director Kash Patel said the Bureau recovered the previously inaccessible images from residual data located in back-end systems. Patel, speaking to Fox News about how they got that video.
We were able to execute lawful searches and go to these private sector companies and expedite results, and then go into their systems and actually excavate material that people would think would normally be deleted and no one would look for.
In a social media post following the release of the images, Savannah Guthrie said the family believes her mother is still alive and is urging anyone with information to come forward, though no suspect has been publicly identified.
I will say we have made substantial progress in these last 36, 48 hours thanks to the technical capabilities of the FBI and our partnerships, and I do believe we are looking at people who, as we say, are persons of interest.
In an email to the Epoch Times, a spokesperson said the Bureau has agents, analysts, and professional staff working day and night with the Sheriff's Department. Authorities say they are also investigating alleged ransom notes sent to the media.
The individual detained in the Nancy Guthrie case denies that he was involved in her disappearance. Here he is describing his questioning by police while speaking to Fox News.
What were they asking you about?
Where my whereabouts.
Okay.
Where did I work? Where was I and all that? But
are you ever up in Tucson?
yeah, I work in Tucson.
What do you do?
TLS, deliver packages.
Okay. Do you think you might have delivered a package to Nancy Guthrie's house?
I don't know. Might have been a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you ever deliver like Amazon packages or anything?
Well, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So do you think you may have? Did they indicate that you might have been on her property? You're not sure.
Nah, they just came up. They. Until right now, all I know is that they show my in-law a picture of somebody wearing a mask or something, and they supposedly look like my eyes.
Right. Okay.
That's it. That's all I know.
The individual also says police had a warrant to search his home, adding that investigators took his cell phone. And breaking just now in the Nancy Guthrie case, TMZ host Harvey Levin says his outlet received a third letter. Levin made the revelation on Fox News earlier. He's saying TMZ received a bizarre email. The sender claims to know who the kidnapper is. The person also claims to have tried contacting Savannah Guthrie's sister and brother without success. Levin says the sender is demanding 1 Bitcoin. The email includes a Bitcoin address that TMZ confirms is active. Levin says it appears to be a real address. The message states that time is more than relevant. Levin says they do not know whether the threat is real, but adds that the note includes a name and an email address. TMZ says the note was received before 5 a.m. Pacific time, which is 8 a.m. Eastern. They forwarded the note to the FBI, but authorities haven't commented on it yet, and NTD isn't able to independently verify its contents. Joining us for insight on the Nancy Guthrie case is Nils Gravilius, a private investigator and crime expert. Good to have you with us today, Nils. What would you make of this latest report of this note?
It needs to be followed up on by the Bureau, and obviously they're doing that, Stefania. But there's been a lot of fake notes, lots of extortionate demands from people who are obviously not involved in the disappearance of Ms. Guthrie. Just last week, a man in Hawthorne, California was arrested for just this sort of thing. So we have to be very cautious. I will point out that there is no proof that Nancy Guthrie is still alive, which in the trade craft of the kidnapper is how you establish your bona fides. Not only that you're the one communicating, but that you're the one holding her. Also, in this modern era, it would be very easy for an artistic extortionist to create an AI proof of life video. Now, I don't know if any of that has been sent to Harvey Levin or any other news outlet. It seems odd to me that the ransom demands are only going to news outlets rather than to the family and or law enforcement. And so presumably anybody holding Nancy Guthrie would know exactly how to contact one of her children. So call me skeptical.
What would be your next steps if you were investigating?
It's obvious to me the context of detaining this DoorDash driver, this delivery man, that the FBI is analyzing cellular signals of telephones coming and going from the Catalina Hills neighborhood where Nancy Guthrie went missing from more than 10 days ago now. Okay. It's an easier location in the sense that there are not 10,000 signals per hour to analyze. There are probably 500, 400 at the most. What works against them is the paucity of surveillance cameras. They did manage to recover some footage going on the back end. I believe a colleague of mine, a private contractor, often to the Justice Department and other agencies, is the man who recovered that footage and those images. I promise you there are more images that were recovered, and they're just not being shared with the public because they're not useful in advancing the investigation.
And what do you make of what do you make of that footage?
Well, a civilian audience should not be shown a brutalized woman ever. It's shocking, it's demoralizing, and it doesn't advance the cause of the investigation. It distracts from the investigation. So the Bureau is using very good judgment here. So is the Pima County Sheriff in keeping their cards very close to the vest. I expect the Bureau and the Sheriff's Department of Pima County to break this case within the next 7 days.
What kind of information?
I'm not even sure that this is a kidnapping. It may have been a hit, an opportunistic robbery, something like that. Yeah, kidnapping might necessarily be a charge if she's removed from her home. But when I say kidnapping, I'm using the term advisedly, a kidnapping for ransom. There are kidnappings that occur all the time in this country. Usually it's parents just taking their own child away from a custody situation. We also have a lot of kidnappings that occur that are never reported because it's cartel activity. One cartel operator kidnapping another cartel operator or their children or their wife or something like that. I want to dispel any notion that the narcotics cartels are involved in this. I don't think they would ever involve themselves in something that would bring such heavy scrutiny to them. And generally they consider attacks on civilians, particularly elderly women, to be utterly unmanly. It would be a death sentence, Ms. Cox, within the cartels to involve themselves in this. If this is a bona fide kidnapping for ransom, it's a very well organized group. Now, you saw the man putting the weeds up in front of the camera in the footage. That means he wasn't that well prepared. You'd think he would have some duct tape or something to cover the camera with. And ultimately, he removed the camera, and the footage had to be obtained from a cloud drive that was they did a computer forensic analysis of a hard drive in order to obtain it. That's the direction that this is going in. As much scientific work as possible till they get a make on a person of interest, and then they process him or her through the interview process and compare where it is, what they've done, who they are connected to, things like that.
What kind of information would be useful that the public might be able to provide, especially if they've now seen this video footage, perhaps of the clothing or something like that? Savannah Guthrie is calling on the public to help as much as they can.
Well, other than the ski mask, the man appeared relatively anodyne. He could be anyone, anywhere. Hence the use of the ski mask to defeat any cameras. If somebody recognizes his manner of dress, the way that he walks, that sort of thing, I would hope that he'd call the Pima County Sheriff or the FBI. Chances are very good that if this was done on a planned level, that they reconnoitered that address multiple times to know when to get in, how to get out, which route to take to the highway, how to avoid flock cameras. I think that the Bureau and the sheriff are working with a lot of information. And right now it's like looking for a needle in a needle stack rather than a needle in a haystack. They have to look through compare a lot of similar information to arrive at the one.
Well, it's great to hear your insights today. Thank you so much, Nils Gravilius.
I want to thank you for lending me your camera and microphone. Have a safe day, Ms. Cox.
And you, thank you. The Department of War is teaming up with the Department of Agriculture to better protect America's farmland. More Secretary Pete Hegseth speaking alongside the Secretary of Agriculture this morning, highlighting the need to protect farmland from foreign adversaries.
Something people may not know is that shortly after 9/11, U.S. forces in Afghanistan uncovered al-Qaeda training manuals that specifically targeted America's agriculture for attack. Bottom line is, we're not dealing with hypotheticals here. The threat is real, it is asymmetric, and it must be neutralized.
China alone owns 265,000 acres of American agricultural land. Back in 1983, it was only 2,000 acres. These actions expose strategic vulnerabilities in America's food and agriculture supply chain. Thankfully, President Trump, the first president to truly understand that protecting the homeland must begin with protecting our farmland.
Last year, the Department of Agriculture announced the National Farm Security Action Plan. Its goal is to elevate American farmland as a point of national security. Since then, the Trump administration worked with various states to end the purchase of American farmland by foreign adversaries such as China. Today, Secretary Hegseth signed a memorandum of understanding aimed at implementing the National Farm Security Action Plan even further. The goal is for the Department of War to work with the Agriculture Department to protect America's farmland together. Canadians in British Columbia are reeling after a shooting at a local high school killed 9 people and left multiple injured. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports.
British Columbia Premier David Eby urged Canadians to rally around the tight-knit community of Tumbler Ridge after a shooting killed 10, including the alleged shooter.
This is a devastating and unimaginable tragedy. We can't imagine what the community is going through, but I know it's causing us all to hug our kids a little bit tighter tonight.
Eby says the 10 people were at 2 different sites.
8 of the people who died as a result of the shootings were at the school, including an individual we understand is the suspected shooter, who is believed to have died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
About 25 people were injured.
Some profoundly serious, and some more minor injuries.
This is only the beginning for so many who have families who have been impacted by today's tragic events. The shockwaves of this horrific event will continue to reverberate through the community and throughout the country for some time.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney wrote on social media that he was devastated by the horrific shootings. Carney says he joins Canadians in grieving with those whose lives have been changed irreversibly. The police talked in more detail about the 2 separate crime scenes.
So we have 2 scenes. We have the school, and then we have found 2 other persons deceased at our residence in Tumbler Ridge that we're trying to determine the connection to this event. We believe they're connected, but we're not in a position to provide that definitively right now at this time.
Police know the identity of the shooter, but did not give further details and declined to say if the attacker was a child. An official active shooter alert described the suspect as a female in a dress with brown hair. Tumbler Ridge is a remote municipality with a population of around 2,400 people, located in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in northern British Columbia. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, a new note in the Nancy Guthrie case is reportedly demanding 1 Bitcoin in exchange for the name of her supposed kidnapper. A private investigator breaks down the latest. Next, a narrowly divided U.S. House rejects a Republican-led effort to block legislative challenges to President Trump's tariffs. The move opens the door for Democrats to try to undo trade measures targeting Canada. Lawmakers voted 217 to 214, with 3 Republicans joining Democrats to oppose the plan. Nebraska Republican Don Bacon said Congress should still be able to debate tariffs. He called them a net negative for the economy and a tax on American consumers and businesses. The outcome is a setback for House Speaker Mike Johnson, who holds only a slim majority. Democrats are now pushing for votes on resolutions that could terminate some of President Trump's tariffs. Restoring trust in federal elections. On Capitol Hill, House lawmakers exploring ways to reform the electoral system, with Republicans proposing legislation dubbed the Make Elections Great Again Act. NTD Sam Wong has the details.
History explains why election integrity safeguards exist. They're not adopted by accident, and they're not racist.
The Committee on House Administration holding a hearing today focusing on restoring integrity in federal elections. At the center of the hearing, Republicans are pushing for a reform bill called the Make Elections Great Again Act. It's a measure they say would improve voter confidence and make voting more secure.
Elections should end on Election Day.
You need a photo ID to cast a ballot. You need to be a citizen to vote. You need an audible paper trail, and you shouldn't mail a ballot to people that don't request them.
The SAVE Act is very important. Voter ID, I mean, if you look at it, no mail-in voting, and you have to have proof of citizenship.
The push comes as the House is set to vote on the Save America Act this week, a bill backed by President Trump that requires proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. Democrats argue the measure would impose hurdles on millions of voters across the country. That's despite surveys that indicate most Americans support mandating photo ID at the ballot box.
This is about control. It is about silencing people who do not agree with Republican policies and about blocking women from the ballot.
The American public is resoundingly in support of this. 83% support only U.S. citizens voting and using an ID for elections. Suggesting this will harm certain demographics is both disingenuous and insulting.
As of now, 13 U.S. states and Washington, D.C. do not require any documentation to cast a ballot in person. And with mail-in voting becoming more common, some say that the current electoral system opens the door to more fraud and abuse.
Not long ago, the Supreme Court found that 24 million registrations, about 1 in 8 in the United States, are invalid or inaccurate, and 2.75 million people were registered in multiple states.
The Make Elections Great Again Act was introduced by House Administration Committee Chairman Brian Stile. In line with President Trump's policies, Stile says the goal is to create uniform national standards that makes it difficult to cheat in elections. Sam Wang, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
Nearly 50,000 students are out of class as teachers strike in San Francisco. 120 schools are set to remain closed for a third day today. The teachers union and the district have been negotiating for nearly a year. Teachers are demanding full family health care coverage, pay raises, and that vacant positions in special education be filled. They're saying the walkout is about the betterment of students in the long term. District leaders say there's been some progress in talks in areas like supporting homeless families and AI training for teachers. But the two sides remain divided over pay and benefits. A renewed focus on the Arctic frost investigation. Major telecom companies testifying before the Senate on why they did or did not comply with the subpoenas of lawmakers' phone records. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Executives from cell phone companies answered questions from Senate lawmakers on the implications of the Arctic frost investigation of President Trump and his supporters.
We are ultimately here this morning because Jack Smith violated his oath of office. He trampled on Americans' rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, all for one reason: to go after President Donald Trump and conservatives across this great nation.
A Senate investigation found that Special Counsel Jack Smith's office had issued 197 subpoenas to over 430 conservative organizations and individuals as part of the Arctic frost probe. The Biden administration's Justice Department launched the probe in 2022 in connection with Trump's challenge to the 2020 election. AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile were asked under oath to explain why they did or did not comply with Jack Smith's secret subpoenas.
We were compelled to provide this information under the law, and we complied. No matter who is the subject of a subpoena, Verizon cannot ignore a valid legal demand or a court order. But our processes could have been better suited to meet what was a new and unique set of circumstances.
An FBI document released by Senator Chuck Grassley's office on October 6th included phone records from 8 U.S. senators and 1 congressman. The information included data on where, when, and to whom the calls were made, but didn't include the content of the calls. Smith served as the DOJ's special counsel for 3 years, starting in 2022. AT&T said its own lawyer questioned Smith's probe.
She identified the potential constitutional issue, saying, quote, "The users of the telephone numbers potentially implicate the protections of the speech or debate clause." Then she asked the critical question, asking for special counsel's view of the potential constitutional implications, quote, "so that AT&T may document the special counsel's views and incorporate them as part of our analysis." Special counsel's office never responded to that email, at least not substantively.
Attorney General Pam Bondi called the operation an unconstitutional, undemocratic abuse of power.
I'm interested in why you didn't do any of the basic investigation. Ask a question, you get a subpoena for all of these numbers, and your testimony is you just handed over the documents, you didn't do anything? Is that what happened?
3 reasons, Senator. So first, when we receive a subpoena, we do not know the nature of the investigation or the sensitivities involved. Second, as I mentioned, we train our subpoena analysts to respect the confidentiality.
The Senate plans to hold more hearings on the Arctic frost investigation. David Lamb, NTD News.
Coming up, Russia starts restricting access to Telegram, one of the country's most popular social media apps. And the father of a US-based activist is convicted in Hong Kong, marking the first case under the city's draconian national security law targeting overseas activists. I'm Stephanie Cox, and this is World Watch. The Trump administration is authorizing new oil and gas activity in Venezuela under a new license. It's a step aimed at boosting energy production in the country. The license allows Americans to provide equipment and services tied to oil production. It also covers shipping, logistics, and maintenance operations. The permit mandates that any contracts signed with Venezuela's government or state energy company, PDVSA, must follow U.S. laws. The license also prohibits new ventures and transactions with Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, and China. And the European Union today approving a loan for Ukraine worth over $100 billion. The president of the European Parliament says this will ensure that essential public services can continue while Ukraine's defense remains strong. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is thanking the EU, saying it's important that this is precisely the signal that must be sent to the aggressor. Ukraine will endure, he says, and can protect lives. And many Russians are having trouble getting onto one of the most popular social media apps in the country. The Russian government announced it's limiting access to Telegram, saying the move is to protect citizens. Officials say the restrictions will remain in place until, quote, violations of Russian law are eliminated. Russia claims Telegram doesn't protect personal data and cannot combat fraud. The Russian native who founded the app says the attempt to place restrictions on Telegram will fail. And Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te is pressing lawmakers to pass a stalled $40 billion defense budget. He warns that delays could undermine the island's security. Lai said the current delay also raises questions in the international community about Taiwan's resolve to defend itself. The proposed special defense budget would raise defense spending to 3.3% of Taiwan's gross domestic product. Lawmakers have blocked Lai's broader budget plan and proposed a significantly smaller defense spending package instead.
I believe that Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi won the support of the Japanese people because, in addition to strengthening Japan's defense capabilities and making Japan strong and prosperous, she also demonstrated Japan's determination to work with allied countries to maintain regional peace and stability.
The father of a U.S.-based Hong Kong activist has been convicted under the city's draconian national security law. 69-year-old Kwok Yin Sang was found guilty after prosecutors said he tried to access funds linked to his daughter, Anna Kwok. She's the executive director of the Washington-based Hong Kong Democracy Council. Critics say the case highlights Beijing's expanding repression of critics abroad following the 2019 pro-democracy protests. U.S. lawmakers and rights groups accuse China of using national security laws to intimidate overseas activists and their families. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead a sizable U.S. delegation to the Munich Security Conference starting Friday. Vice President J.D. Vance last year at the gathering accused European leaders of censoring free speech and failing to control immigration. NTD's Daniel Monahan speaks with a European lawyer specializing in free speech, cases about some current issues she says are placing it at risk.
Senior counsel with the legal firm Alliance Defending Freedom International, Adina Portaro, says Europe's Digital Services Act, which the EU defines as minimizing risks to citizens, including exposure to what it calls illegal and harmful content, continues to put pressure on freedom of expression.
And one major aspect regarding that is the fact that the Commission is really acting as a judge, as a prosecutor, as an investigator regarding the DSA. So it is something that in normal constitutional systems committed to the rule of law, that should not happen because these powers should be normally kept separate.
Portaro says there is significant potential for abuse under the guise of protecting people from so-called harmful content.
The issue is that normally this gatekeeping type of exercise also comes with a very specific narrative regarding harmful content, for example, right? What is harmful content? Is it really pornographic content and exclusively pornographic content? Or can you put there ideas that the people in power disagree with? For example, if you have a priest sermon there saying that there are only two biological sexes, is that a harmful content that people in power can simply label and then take out of the public space?
The European Commission also recently published its latest strategy against racism.
So in this latest EU strategy against racism, the Commission deplores the fact that there has not been any progress in passing the infamous file of making hate speech an EU crime, the same level with terrorism, human trafficking, and money laundering.
One issue that could fall victim to online suppression of so-called racism could be citizens disagreeing with what they view as excessive migration and its effects on their community. For example, the UK's Prevent Counter-Terrorism strategy contains a section in many training manuals that categorizes views critical of mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups as a subcategory of extreme right-wing terrorist ideology.
As a legal organization, we are strongly opposed to racism. The issue is when such a concept is used to limit legitimate viewpoints and even legitimate criticism regarding the political sphere and some political action which is taken. We know dissent is a legitimate expression, and the European Union seems to use these terms and protected grounds in order to limit dissent and to limit these favorable viewpoints.
Portaro says she would like to see the European Union take a more open-minded approach to differing viewpoints.
If the European Union continues to view citizens' views and concerns and criticism regarding political action as risks to be mitigated, then we're really going on a downhill slope here in Europe. Politicians should actually welcome such criticism and be able to integrate it constructively in a plan going forward rather than to silence dissent.
The attorney says historically, granting governments or institutions the power to decide which speech is permitted ends up stifling debate and censoring dissent.
The second point is indeed those opinions will not disappear. They will just go into the underground. They will not be on social media anymore, but they will be in specific groups that can actually then really target the groups that are disfavored and can develop into aggression and potential violence. So it's not something to be taken lightly. It's just a realization that just pushing the delete button will not solve the issue that we have as a society.
A review of the Digital Services Act next year will focus in part on free speech concerns. Portaro says she hopes the European Commission will listen to what she calls the legitimate concerns of citizens. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And NTD has reached out to the European Commission for comment. Coming up, the FDA reassessing a common chemical additive used to preserve food, deciding whether the preservative is actually safe. And Amazon is expanding its same-day delivery prescription service. How many cities the expansion will cover? Welcome back. The Food and Drug Administration is reassessing a chemical preservative that's been used in food for more than 60 years. The FDA reviewing whether BHA is safe to use. The chemical is used to prevent fats and oils from spoiling in various foods and meat products. Health officials say if BHA doesn't meet the gold standard for use, it will be removed from the food supply. The FDA deemed BHA safe in 1958 and approved it as a food additive in 1961. The move today comes after the FDA launched a program last summer to review chemicals used in certain foods. We'll be keeping you updated there. Amazon is expanding its same-day prescription delivery service to about 4,500 cities and towns across the U.S. The e-commerce giant says the expansion will reach states including Idaho and Massachusetts. Amazon launched pharmaceutical delivery in 2018 after acquiring PillPack, an online pharmacy. In October, it partnered with Weight Watchers to deliver medications, including injectable GLP-1 obesity treatments for members of Weight Watchers. In December, Amazon began filling prescriptions for common medications at kiosks in its primary care clinics called One Medical. Amazon acquired One Medical in 2023. The national primary care provider allows patients to access primary and urgent care for a $199 annual subscription. Many newborns and toddlers aren't eating as healthily as they could. A clear majority of baby foods, snacks, and drinks in the U.S. are found to be ultra-processed. They might also have additives that are linked to possible health issues. That's according to a study released today in the journal Nutrients. Researchers looked at over 650 foods and said that more than 70% had additives connected to, quote, inflammation and disruptions in gut microbiome. In a recent report, the CDC also found most foods eaten by U.S. children are ultra-processed. Previous studies have shown that eating ultra-processed foods can lead to major health issues, including obesity and type 2 diabetes. And one of the world's largest food companies is staying intact, at least for now. Kraft and Heinz were both already huge companies when they merged in 2015 to become a packaged food behemoth. After years of seeing its market share chipped away by smaller competitors, the company decided in September to split. But a new CEO took the reins in January, and now he says he thinks the company's challenges are fixable and is halting the breakup. Kraft Heinz now plans to invest $600 million into research and marketing to boost its profits. The company's portfolio of brands includes Oscar Mayer, Kool-Aid, and Miracle Whip. The U.S. is sending its best hockey players to the Olympics once again. This is the first time in 12 years the National Hockey League has allowed its players to skate. They didn't go in 2022 due to the pandemic and set out 2018 because the NHL said it would disrupt the regular season. Their participation wasn't cemented this year until the 11th hour due to concerns about the ice at Milan's venues. Last month, the NHL sent its own experts to trial events and concluded it is safe enough. Each of the league's 32 teams had at least one representative at the Winter Games. Team USA still faces an uphill battle. It hasn't won gold since 1980. The U.S. will play Latvia Thursday in its first game. Now, before we wrap up this hour, we'd like to remind you of a slight change to our broadcast schedule. Starting next Monday, February 16th, the show will air from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay tuned for that. And if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox. Thanks for watching.